The comic strip Calvin and Hobbes inspired millions of people across this country to embrace their imaginations and push the boundaries. A deeply metaphorical, if you can say that, comic strip, and a deep, deep one that you normally don't find on the funny pages. But what was the real story of how this comic strip came to be? Nevin Martell is the author of Looking for Calvin and Hobbes, the unconventional story of Bill Watterson and his revolutionary comic strip. And Nevin joins us right now. What a wonderful book this sounds like. As I just was telling you, have never been a Calvin and Hobbes reader until I started, boning up on the information this morning. And now, all these years, I wish I had been reading it because it just sounds absolutely fascinating.
Well, the wonderful thing about the strip, too, is that for somebody like you that hasn't discovered it, if you go back and discover it now, it's really timeless. Like, it's rooted in a place that's kind of without references and without time. So a kid 100 years from now is going to be able to enjoy it just as much as somebody who enjoyed it when they first read it.
And the author, the producer of Calvin and Hobbes, Bill Watterson, what a fascinating character he must have been.
He was really a Salinger kind of character for cartooning. Didn't give many interviews, forewent licensing the strip, and didn't really become a public figure at all.
Immensely talented guy, immensely popular comic strip. He could have made presumably millions and millions of dollars.
Sure.
He didn't want to, huh?
No, he always felt that the strip should exist just as the strip, and that anything else would be kind of a perversion of his vision. And so he turned everything down.
Very quiet person, a reclusive person, an introvert?
Absolutely. Didn't do very many interviews during the time that he was producing the strip, and after he finished producing it, didn't give any more. So, definitely a Salinger.
Yeah. And you get just a taste of the depth of this comic strip on many, many levels just by examining the name, Calvin and Hobbes.
Sure.
The theologian Calvin, from, I guess, what, the 17th century, would that be?
That'll do, yeah.
and then the political philosopher, Hobbes.
Well, it's funny because, that's what everyone thinks. But actually the story behind Calvin is that the strip was originally called Marvin and Hobbes. But there was a comic strip on the market at the time called Marvin. And so he changed it to Calvin because it was similar sounding at the last minute. But he had not intentionally named it after two philosophers. Hobbes is specifically named, as you point out, after Hobbes.
And I did a little bit of research on both of those people, Calvin and Hobbes, and both seem to be very, very sophisticated people in their approach to the struggles of life. I guess it was Hobbes who believed in that if man was left to his nature, basically, that he was going to resort to violence, and life was going to be very short and very violent. So we needed to have some sort of social contract with the rest of humanity, which implies to me that you just need to respect people. You don't necessarily have to enforce it, but respect other people with a social kind of a contract. And that seems to come through in the comic strip.
Definitely.
Again and again and again.
Yeah, especially there's a series of strips that kind of have a kind of environmental tack to them, and Hobbes is always kind of very critical of humanity for the way they're treating the earth and what we've decided to do to it. And you're right, he thinks that life is nasty, brutish, and short, and we're just going to make it nastier and shorter if we keep it up, at least according to those strips.
Right. Did you get a chance to speak to Bill Watterson? What kind of access did he give you?
Well, it's interesting. I had like a long kind of correspondence through his family and through his editor, and ultimately I didn't do an interview with him personally, but I did end up interviewing about 150 people that were involved in his life in one way or another, and I did kind of get word from him, through his kind of intermediaries. And since then, his family has said that they love the book, and I'm waiting to hear what his review is too.
I'm sure you're waiting on pins and needles for that one, huh?
Absolutely. I can't lie.
Do you know what he has? He's basic. I know that people have tried to track him down. He stopped writing the strip, 10 years ago or so?
1995.
1995, and it ran in its syndication for something like 10 years.
Full 10 years,
But he disappeared off the radar screen. Has anybody been able to track him down, and does anybody know what he's doing these days?
Well, it's interesting. The day the book came out, I found out that he has done a series of woodcuts that are serving as the backdrop for a touring flamenco Spanish guitar concert series. And, kind of out of the blue, and then I tracked them down, and it turns out that he's friends with the guy who organized the concert series. But that's one thing he's doing, and he's been painting a lot, which hopefully he'll exhibit that at some point, too.
I've read that he went to Kenyon College in Ohio, a very, very well-respected college.
Definitely.
And that's where he really began to discover his talent for artwork, and demonstrated that one by painting a copy of the Sistine Chapel ceiling on his on his dorm room, his ceiling?
Yeah, he did it without asking permission, actually. And so just as he was about to finish it, he realized that, maybe I should ask an administrator if this is okay. And they said, it's okay, but you're going to have to paint over it at the end of the year. But it had taken him so long that it was only up for a week before he had to paint it over again.
Oh, what a tragedy.
Yeah, I know. It'd be worth millions now.
Can you imagine what it would be worth?
Yeah.
It would be the most coveted dorm room at Kenyon College.
Absolutely.
What lessons have you taken away from writing this book?
That's a great question. I think that you never go where you expect to go. I thought this was going to be a very straightforward biography, and instead it turned out to be a very personal exploration of this Salinger character that didn't want to be known, but I think I shed quite a lot of light on.
His introversion, to me, the Calvin and Hobbes thing is some way a symbol of the introversion. I think of a ventriloquist, Oftentimes you hear that ventriloquists are very shy people, but they use the dummy as a voice for their extrovert side, which can never be released through their own voice, but maybe through someone else, and maybe Hobbes served that purpose.
Absolutely. And if you go back and read the strips, you'll see a lot of Watterson in the dialogues that those two characters have. And you're right, his life played out in the strip, not through, say, the news or through newspapers.
Wow. Well, it certainly looks like a fascinating book, and I'm really curious to read it. Thank you very much, Nevin Martell, the author of the book Looking for Calvin and Hobbes, the unconventional story of Bill Watterson and his revolutionary comic strip. Thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.